Hello guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. It is I again, Thlologelo Promise Rampa, and this is Relocate to Australia with Promise. It is still, of course, your #1 DIY relocation platform. So if you were looking for information about relocating to Australia or anywhere else in this world, because usually the process is the same, then you are tuned into the right channel. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and do the things that people do when they're here on YouTube. Guys, one of my neighbors is South African, okay? So her son was getting married, so I helped her to do her speech and send through a video to her son. He's getting married. He was getting married in America. And then she came over and she brought me some jelly tots and braai pap. And we also had castle kind of like to celebrate and to commemorate English the day. That's what we did, and it was so much fun. So thankful. So yes, I've got a neighbor who is South African, so see, we are not the only ones out here. We are still within the month of September, so I'm still doing the finance series. So I'll be talking everything money so that you guys can kind of get a rough idea of what to expect when you are relocating from wherever you are coming to Australia. Obviously, for people who will be coming from first world countries, currency-wise, it will not be too much of a jump. It'll just be an adjustment here and there. But for people who are from third world countries like myself, like South Africa, it is a huge jump when you're converting the rand to the dollar. So I'll be trying to have such conversations so that you guys can be a bit prepared when you're coming here, okay? So as you guys have seen on my thumbnail, we're going to be talking about the expected cost or expected expenses in your first month after relocating, like being in Australia for 1 month, okay? The reason why I have separated this from the whole cost of living is because this is different. Like the first month is a huge jump. Again, as I've mentioned to you guys, it is the conversion of the rand to the dollar. So you burn through the rands like nobody's business. When you start converting, you're like, yeah, this thing. In South Africa, this thing is 100 rands. Hey, you start feeling like I don't need it. I'll starve. So that's the first month, especially if you've never been outside of your country like me. I've never been anywhere in this world apart from South Africa and then came to Australia. I've literally never visited any place outside of my home country. So obviously for me and people like me, it will be a shock. Like, you'll even think of going back home. You literally go into panic mode. You worry so much in the first month, and that's why I emphasize a lot and I say to people, before coming to Australia, make sure that you've secured employment. Make sure that you have secured employment before coming to Australia, because at least you know that within the first month, especially if you start working within the first month, you know that, okay, fine, the first month will be to sort out whatever, and then I'll be going to my job and income will be coming. The good thing about Australia, they don't pay people end of the month, which is great. So you broke only for 2 weeks. You can survive 2 weeks. Imagine if you were paid monthly. Some jobs are actually very good. They pay on a weekly basis, but it really does depend on their pay system and whatever agreements that you guys would have. So that's why I'm saying the first month is very hard, because you're going to have to look for accommodation. Like there are a lot of things that you're gonna have to do to kind of like sort yourself financially and settle before going into work. So if then you're going to be coming to Australia without having a sought employment and you don't know where you're going. Let's say, for example, you come to Australia with a permanent residency visa, because with a PR, you don't need to come to Australia with a job. You can start hunting for a job when you come here. That is a bit risky, because let's say, for example, you come with the first month. Let's say we don't have COVID. I want to talk about the COVID part, but let's just park it for now. So let's say, for example, you come and then you decide, okay, I'm going to be in Brisbane. And you live in Brisbane for that 2 weeks and you're job hunting, and let's say, for example, you don't get a job. Or maybe your permanent residency is for a regional area. So you then need to go look for a regional area to live. So imagine trying to settle, trying to find schools, especially if you're with children, trying to find accommodation and all of that. And it is so stressful. And on top of that, having to look for a job, sending through CVs, trying to navigate to get to that job, trying to get a car. So it's going to be too much. So for me, my advice to you guys, before we even continue, disclaimer, I'm not a relocation agent. I'm just a person that has done this whole thing myself. Okay, fine, we're done with the disclaimer. So yes, before coming to Australia, I would really recommend that you guys get jobs. And then when you get a job, you know, okay, I'll be going to this town. And it becomes easier, it's specific. But that week before you come, you can start researching the area. what do they have, what kind of accommodation, what kind of shops, what kind of place is it. So at least before you even leave your country, you've got an idea about where you're going to be. That really helps in the first month of being here. So obviously things that you have to prepare for. This is something that I did not know was real. Like, I knew it was real because people are talking about it on TV, but I didn't think it was this real. Number one, the first thing you need to be prepared for, and this is not a financial thing. It can be a financial thing if it gets really bad, but jet lag, guys, jet lag is serious. Jet lag is real. So jet lag is your body clock still being used to the time zone of wherever you were. So obviously with us in South Africa, we have an 8-hour difference. So in the beginning when we came to Australia, trust me, it was so hard. We were awake in the middle of the night and we were sleeping during the day. So whatever that we had planned for during the day, we could not do it because we were sleeping and we were tired. So, yo, guys, so it will charge you about 2, 3, 4 days where you are busy with this thing. It's worse also when you have children because they're also experiencing it, and maybe you can resolve your jet lag much quicker because you're older, but with them, it's a mess. It's horrible. So that's one thing to also consider. You're gonna need 2, 3, 4 days in Yana for jet lag, where during the day you are an owl, you are sleeping, you are gone, and then in the night you'll be awake. Also, you have to be very, very careful and mindful of the visa that you have, because if of course you're on a temporary visa, there are some benefits you cannot get from the government. But if you're coming from whatever country with a permanent residency visa, then that first week or 2 weeks, you're going to have to go to places like your Centrelink. That's where you're going to be getting financial support and all of that. And that's where you're going to be like applying for all those kind of things. But that's another conversation that I'm going to have later when we have the permanent residency talk. But it's very important for you to know which visa that you're going to be coming with and to know what it can provide for you, especially when you're looking at children and schooling and daycare, because daycare is expensive, number one. Number two, schooling, sometimes, as I've explained in my previous videos, sometimes you might have to pay school fees even if it is a state school, and it is offered for free for people who are permanent residents and for people who are citizens. So you need to know which visa and what you're going to get from that visa in order to, kind of like navigate and be able to understand what the situation is for yourself and your family, especially when coming to finances. The other thing with schooling, you can always contact the schools, like especially if you know, or okay, I found a job, let's say for example in Grafton. That's where we started, in Grafton in New South Wales. You can always contact the surrounding schools. But the problem here is, usually here in Australia, they have catchment areas. They've got catchment areas, so you need to live in a certain area in order to go to a specific school. But there is no harm in you researching all those schools and finding out, and then kind of getting an idea of, okay, this is the kind of town or this is the kind of suburb that I would like to live in for however, and then life goes on. But those are the things that you'll have to think about, because you need to decide, is your child going to go to a private school? And if they're not going to go to a private school, the state in which you are living, are they allowing your child to go to a public school without paying? These are things you can also start preparing before you come to Australia, which will make things a lot more easier and a lot less stressful. And these people, you just send them emails. You don't need to meet them face to face. So it does not require for you to be within the country. You can start doing these things when you are still home. Okay, keep that in mind. The third thing, of which was second on my list until I got to hijack myself with the schooling discussion. Anyway, the third thing is the hotel. So obviously when you come to Australia, if you don't have any family or friends, the first thing that you would need to do is to live in a hotel situation. So obviously, as when we landed in Brisbane, we then got a hotel. We had booked that hotel before coming here. So we got that hotel for just one night because we knew, okay, by the time we land, it will be late at night and then we'll be leaving in the morning. So we got our hotel. So it was our first hotel in Brisbane, and then we got another hotel in Grafton, but I think we stayed there for about a couple of days. That's where the jet lag was horrible. We stayed there for a couple of days, and then we got another one. That was the third one before we got our rental. Okay, so obviously you'll have to look for hotels. Hotels here in Australia are expensive, and I think that's why people have this huge culture of camping. Obviously, when you're an immigrant, you cannot come here and first thing you do is camp. Because, I don't know, would you? I don't think so, because you'll be having so many bags. Where would you even get a tent? Maybe it's something you can do because it will be cheaper to have a tent, and I don't know, man. You just get a hotel. Anyway, yes, you can do that. If you're alone, you can be homeless and get a tent, it's fine. But if you've got children, obviously you need to be more prepared and get into a hotel. However, things have now obviously changed because of COVID. So people are supposed to quarantine for 2 weeks. So now you are forced to be in a hotel for 2 weeks, which can be very costly and very expensive. Obviously, hotel prices range from anything from the cheapest to the most expensive. You can look that up on whatever booking agency website, whatever. You can look that up to see what suits you. For me, we are cheapskates. We just look, okay, is this one going to, am I going to put my head? Do they have cockroaches? It's fine, I'll doom them. So we just want to lay our heads and have somewhere safe to put our bags. That's it. Because otherwise, you're going to be out there trying to like explore the place. You hardly ever spend a lot of time in your hotel anyway. So don't try to look for anything that is too expensive. Just try to find anything that is just comfortable enough and within budget. On a good day, you can get something for $100 a night. So $100 is about 1,000 rands. So let's say, for example, you get, well, that one would be a bit shady, but still, like, you can do. I think relocating now during this COVID madness is financially draining because there's a lot of dead money that goes into you quarantining for 2 weeks. But it is what it is, man. They do also have motels, but which are quite cheap, and you could try them. But again, it also depends on the area you're going. If you're going to be in the city, there are a lot of variety, and there's a lot of variety in the city. You can get a lot of accommodation at a fairly good price. But if it's like a regional area, obviously because there's not much competition and all of that, the prices might go up. But do your research. Especially when you're looking at which place you're going to be going. Try to not be in the city for too long if you're going to be going to a regional area. Just be in the city for either a day or two to try and explore it if you want to. In the beginning, it's going to be hard for you to do that, so don't focus too much on that. And then after you get out of the city, if you're going to a regional area, try and spend more time there in order for you to settle and get yourself used to the area. So anyway, yes, now obviously because of COVID, you're going to have to budget 2 weeks of accommodation to just quarantine. And if you're going to then test positive, obviously you're going to have to stay there longer. So it means you have to cough up more money. So think about that one. You have to be ready for that one. Obviously, when you're in hotel quarantine for that 2 weeks, you're unable to do anything. The positive is it's going to help you get through the jet lag. Obviously, if you work on it, I don't know how I was going to do it if I was in that situation, but maybe try and work on the jet lag and still try to make calls and all of that while you are in quarantine. Try to call banks, try to call like real estate agents, try to organize something while you're still inside. And then when you leave, you know, okay, at least you're halfway with the organization of things in the country. The other thing, when you leave the airport, or transportation, so the fourth thing is transportation. When you leave the airport, what we did, we just got a taxi. We put all our bags, because we literally packed all our lives in suitcases, got it into that taxi, and then we went to our hotel. I don't remember how much that was, but it was expensive. I remember when I was like converting it to rent, I was like, malenga for Uber. Ooh, Jesus. A lot of people will then struggle to make the decision as to, do I take a taxi to travel around? Do I take a bus? Do I take a train? Or do I rent a car? My advice, rent a car. Car rentals are quite cheap. They're not that bad. I think they're similar prices to South Africa. That's why I'm saying that's cheap, because for a first world country, you'd expect them to be a bit higher. But renting a car in Australia is not that expensive. I think that you have to obviously look out for when you're renting a car. Number one, make sure that it is the company that has other rentals in other areas. The reason being, let's say, for example, we got ours in Queensland, in Brisbane, and we had to drop it off in Grafton. So you have to make sure that it's like kind of, what are those famous ones? The Euro cars. Yes, they do have like your Euro cars and whatever here as well. So try to rent from these big rental corporations, where at least you know that wherever you're going, you can leave it somewhere without it being too costly, because obviously they will charge you for not returning the car to them, because I don't know why they do that. Anyway, yeah, try and rent a car. and rent it for as long as possible, because that's the car that you're going to be using to travel around. Don't rent it for too long though, because that's going to be very expensive. I would say rent it for about a week after getting out of hotel quarantine. Maybe rent it out for a week. In that week, look for a car that is number, I think that's number 6. Am I on number 6 or number 5? I don't know. That is number 6. Try and buy a car the first week that you come to Australia. And I know you're gonna be like, is this girl crazy? Didn't you just say the rand to the dollar? Cars in Australia are cheap. You can get a car that you can drive for the longest of long. Very cheap. I'll talk about it when I go into buying a car in Australia. The other thing, you are able to open a bank account all the way from wherever you are in Australia before coming here. That's what we did. We did not know until we researched it and then we found out some. I don't know how we found out. But yes, you are able to open a bank account before coming here. Obviously, it's only when you land and go to your nearest branch where you'll be able to activate your account, but they can keep it open for you until you get here. When we came to Australia, we did not know that we needed to inform our bank that we were leaving. So I think it was when my husband was going to fetch the rental car, he was trying to swipe for it, right? And they were like, no, the transaction is not going through. Mind you, there's an 8-hour difference between Australia and South Africa. So even if you're going to call the bank, who's going to pick up? Because they're sleeping. Lucky enough, we had friends here in Australia. They were able to help us pay for the car, and then we paid them back. But imagine if we did not have that. Hey, guys. Tell your banks. Before you leave, tell your banks. There are some things that you might need to sign. Tell your banks to say, okay, fine, I'll be going abroad. Do I need to sign anything? Will I be able to pay for things when I am in that country? And then they try and fix it up for you on the system. Fine. The second thing, try and sign this document. They might have signed it and we had to like query it back. It's what they use for trading. So it's kind of like a currency exchange agreement document type of situation. So basically what that document is for is for you saying that I'm going to be transferring money from my account into the Australian account, and then from the Australian account into my South African account. Obviously, we had to keep that channel open because black tax is real, and also because we had some funds back home that we needed to transfer into our bank account here in Australia. So it is a process, but it is very important to have that document signed before you come to this country, so that you don't have to go through what we went through, having to print out that document, sign it, pay money to courier it back home, and then have it then sorted out there. Obviously, when you're paying things online, the reason why we did not also notice is because we're paying for a lot of things online, like hotels, you just pay them from your online, like EFT. What is it? Is it EFT? Yes, online. But then when you swipe, it's another thing, because it's like, hey, so now what we know is that you are still in Africa. Where are you? What are you doing? What if it's some person that has taken your card? And so obviously it's to protect your money and all of that. So yes, make sure that you have a conversation with your bank and you ask them, what is it that I need to sign? What do I need to do to transfer money? And also to be able to use my money in a foreign country before I convert. Yes, so do that with your banks, okay? The other thing, this is one of the first things that you're gonna need to do, obviously, when you get to a foreign country, new country, the first thing that you need to do is to get a SIM card. This was actually supposed to be top of the list. Just pick a SIM card, get it activated, and also learn how to recharge that thing. Because I remember when we first came here, we got SIM cards fine. And then after a month, and then the data expired and all of that. And I was like, how do you even recharge? So you need to learn how to recharge, okay? Obviously, with the first month of settling, you need to think furniture. You need to think, okay, how am I going to do this? You're going to do this like you would do if you were living in Midrand or Centurion. You're going to suffer first. Let's say, for example, you got your rental. Good. Now you need to figure out, because it's an empty house, furniture. If you're lucky enough, you might find accommodation that has like some basics like your couch, bed, and all of that. Hopefully the beds don't have mites, but chill. For me, my advice is do not get expensive furniture. You don't have to, number one. Number two, you can always get secondhand things from Facebook Marketplace. I will try and do a separate episode to help you find things very cheap so that you don't have to bust your budget. The first thing that you need to do, obviously, is to get a bed. As long as you're not sleeping on the floor, just get a bed. That's number one. Get a bed, and everything else, you can sit on camping chairs for the longest of long. Like, other things will come. There are a lot of shops that are able to, that are not that expensive. You don't need to get anything fancy smancy. All you just need to do is get essentials and the things that you need. So I'm going to be doing videos, obviously, on groceries, where to get groceries, where to buy cheap stuff like your beddings and your plates. All you need is somewhere to sleep and things to eat with. So your pots, your plates, your spoons, yada, yada, yada. Just think about it like, when you went to varsity and it was your first week in varsity, or first 2-3 weeks, and all you had was a small bar fridge and beddings and a bed and pots, and think of it like that. So that's what you're going to do in the first month, as long as you get the essentials, and that's it. Other things, you'll pick them up along the way, and I'll show you how to pick them up wisely, okay? Because here, one thing that I will tell you about Australians, they are consumers. They buy so many things that they don't even need. And then when they realize, oh, Evan, this thing is still brand new, I've not even used it, they put it half price, put it on Marketplace on Facebook, and then you go grab it too. Still brand new, still works, and then you can then use it. Oh, the other thing, if you have children, you need to get car seats. I know. Somebody might be looking at this like, hey, Akira, when you have car seats, you have... No, not in Africa. It don't work like that. We don't need such things. We are brave. So, yes, when in Australia, very strict. Very, 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 very strict. So, obviously, when you're renting out a car, they will ask you, do you have children? Automatically, they will say, you need car seats. So, you're going to rent the car seats from the car rental service. The good thing is, at least they've got that factored into their services, where you can actually rent a car seat, which is great. But when you get your own car, you need to buy also a car seat. But car seats are not that expensive. You can spend anything from $50 to $200. That's like about 500 rands to 2,000 rands, depending on what kind you like, what kind you want, and how old your children are. So you need to be clued up on the age that is legally included in children being on the car. This English, I translated this in my head. You're going to need to know the age brackets where children are supposed to be on car seats in Australia. Yes. And the other thing that you can do in the first month, of which I did not know, you can... Okay, so with other people from other countries, I'm not too sure if they've changed this, but we were able to straight. You do not even have to go to like your driving school or do a test or anything like that. So at the, what do they call it? Services Australia. So this is transport. At the transport department here in Australia, what they do, they've got a booklet for the countries that are allowed to transfer their driver's licenses from whatever country they're coming from to an Australian driver's license, and they send that license through to you via mail, which is great. It is a system that works very well. I love the system here. Very quick. You don't have to bribe nobody. Usually they look at this. They look at how long the driver's license, how old that driver's license is. So if it is less than 2 years old, I think, yes. I think if it is less than 2 years, I might be wrong. But if it's less than a year or two, you might have to go through the driving school, because they feel like you're still fairly new in the driving industry. But if you have been driving for however many years plus, it is an automatic just convert. They literally just take your information, put in whatever code that you had on there, match it up with what they have, and then they just give you your driver's license. It is as quick and as easy as that. We literally had our driver's licenses converted within 30 minutes, 45 minutes. No! South Africa, Otladula Traffic Department. You will sit there the whole day from the morning to the evening, because somebody got to be paid. Somebody got to be paid. So here, no bribery situation, nothing like that. Like, I'm like, this is nice. You don't have to do shiga business to get your license. It's just quick. Literally 30 minutes, 45 minutes. They convert that thing. They tell you, they give you the paper one where you're like, okay, you can drive with this one. We'll send your driver's license through the mail. You don't even have to go back to the traffic department for you to get it. They send it through your mail to wherever you're going to be living. That's why it's very important for you to get accommodation, because your driver's license always has your updated address. I think that's how they monitor people's movements. So if you're going to be living in a certain accommodation, when you move there going to another accommodation, like for rentals, then you need to change your address as soon as possible. The other thing, obviously, that you're going to be spending on is getting uniform for your children, taking care of, as I mentioned to you guys, the whole schooling situation and all of that. With the uniforms here are so expensive, and my child always loses her hats. Oh, Marang is always losing her hat. She's losing this. She's losing jerseys. Winter is worse because you buy jerseys all day long. But you can always get second-hand school uniform that you can find on Marketplace. And that I love so much, because here people are always on the go. They're always up and down. So uniform usually is still fairly new, because let's say, for example, you came to Harvey Bay for a year and then you did not like it, but your children had to go to school, so you bought school uniform. So the uniform is just only a year old. So you do not need to buy uniform brand new. There's always uniform that is available on Facebook Marketplace. I wish I knew and I did that, because I've been buying uniform very expensive. But now I'll make sure that I'm smarter, and I always go look on Marketplace before I try to replace something that Marang has lost, so she does not lose something that is brand new. So yes, uniform can be very expensive here in Australia, so you don't need to buy it brand new. Always try and look for it on Facebook Marketplace. Those are the things that you should be mindful of in your first month arriving in the country. I believe that this is the same process and the same gist and the same scenario if you were going to go to another country and not coming to Australia. So budget, you must budget. You must know what you're getting yourself into. My recommendation, make sure you find a job before coming here, because at least it gives you that specific location, and it takes away a lot of stress where you don't need to spend the first month looking for a job. So yeah, I hope this helped you kind of like paint a picture of what to expect when you relocate. I did not know this because I had not done it. This is my first time, and I wish I had somebody who told me. So that's it for me this week. I'll see you again next week when we're going to be talking rentals. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, do link up with me and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. Alrighty guys, until next time, goodbye.